told that during the night, the village where this hospital was attacked by germ warfare. The peasants found flies or fleas on the snow. And one of the Hungarian doctors told me, "You see, I spoke with one of the peasants. He already spoke some Korean. And he told me that there were no American planes. There were the Chinese soldiers who put these flies on the ice." And the doctor added immediately, "But you know the peasants, they say one thing and then they say the contrary. So I just mentioned the story to you."
In the whole black record of false propaganda, these charges should stand out as a monumental warning to the American people and to the free world. A warning as menacing and as urgent as a forest fire bearing down upon a wooden village. The extent to which communist leaders worldwide have gone in fabricating, disseminating, and persistently pursuing these false charges should impress upon the brains of those who yet fail or refuse to see the purpose of communism the deadly danger with which it confronts us and the free world.
In the war of propaganda, the UN side was on the defensive. On Koje-do, the communist prisoners, at high cost to themselves, were about to score another victory. The troubled situation in the camp had developed into a crisis. Combat troops were sent in with orders to restore control. The crisis broke when the commander in charge of Koje-do, Brigadier General Francis Dodd, rashly agreed to meet POW leaders outside the compound gates. Dodd became the first American prison commandant to be taken captive by his own charges.
이 사람들이 그가 끌어들여서 수용소 안에 갖다가 놓고 자, 우린 자원소환 하지 않겠다.
We dragged Dodd inside and held him in the prison compound.
뭐 여기 무슨 자원소환이고 뭐고.
We told him we all wanted to return to the fatherland. So why this nonsense over voluntary repatriation?
그 안에서 인정했단 말입니다. 인정하고
Even the Geneva Convention allows prisoners to go home. Dodd agreed and promised to cancel the screening. So we told him please go and let him out. But then in revenge, he destroyed the compound with heavy arms.
This version of history is a little tough on Dodd. His release had been secured with a promise to end forced prisoner screening. But as soon as Dodd was safe, the agreement was repudiated by the UN command and its author court-martialed. A new commandant, General Bull Boatner, was dispatched to Koje-do to sort things out. The hardline communist compounds were retaken with a full-scale military assault. With the loss of one American life and several hundred prisoner casualties, the rebellious compounds were subdued. Control was re-established, but the political price was high. At the armistice talks, the communists were able to present the UN as a bully, using tanks and flamethrowers against defenseless prisoners. The Allies were dismayed, both at the violence and at its catastrophic effect on the prospects for peace. The truce talks were stalled indefinitely. Those who suffered most were the Korean people, and the prisoners on both sides condemned to spend another year as captives in a war that could not be stopped. Korea today is dominated by the memories and rumors of wars. On this hill by the Imjin River 37 years ago, the Gloucesters made their stand. The Korean dead are immortalized on both sides in stone and neon. Two very different societies have developed, caught in an armed truce, which will be put under strain once more in the year of the Seoul Olympics. In 1952, Dwight Eisenhower was elected President of the United States. He was a new face in politics and an old soldier.
So help you God. So help me God.
His campaign managers had skillfully used his pledge, "I shall go to Korea," in his attacks on Truman.
When Eisenhower was elected, rather overwhelmingly, the first thing he wanted to do was to carry out his pledge to go to Korea. He inspected the Korean forces and had watched them in battle practice. And so he had a thorough grounding in what the actual situation, political and military, was in Korea.
Eisenhower undertook to build up the South Korean army and to get truce talks resumed. Behind his bonhomie towards South Korea's President Syngman Rhee, there lay deep disquiet.
Nobody thought Rhee was a Democrat. We used to call him a rather inefficient dictator, rather inefficient totalitarian. And everybody knew this. We knew about some of the atrocities. And I suppose what it came down to, and quite properly to my view, was that he was a much less vicious son of a bitch than the people in the North. And besides, he was our son of a bitch.
Rhee had faced re-election in 1952.
For the first time in Korean history, its citizens go to the polls to choose a president by popular election. In every town and village, they learn the democratic method.
He wanted to change the constitution to transfer this process from the assembly to the people. Rhee arrested his opponents in the assembly to get his way.
Now, it was charged by his critics that the reason he wanted a popular election is because the National Assembly would not re-elect him. And I suspect that's true. I don't believe they would have re-elected him. They were under American pressure not to re-elect him because he was demanding a drive to the Yalu River, continuance of the war.
But senior Americans like General Van Fleet admired Rhee's pugnacity, even when his opponents were forced to seek asylum with the United Nations.
I remember waking up one morning at about 5 o'clock in the morning and when it was all dark and seeing somebody in my bedroom, and it turned out to be the Deputy Speaker of the Parliament who'd come to seek asylum. Now, I didn't give him asylum, but I let him stay there until later in the day he was able to make his escape and go into hiding somewhere else. There was a former Minister of Agriculture who came and asked, in effect, for asylum, which I said I couldn't give him. And he asked me whether I couldn't take him on as a houseboy.
Rhee was a loose cannon threatening to split the UN alliance. A small group met to discuss a plan, codenamed Operation Ever Ready, to remove him.
We met at the request of Washington, the three of us. And as I say, it was contingency, working out what the consequences would be if he was displaced. Of course, it would be highly desirable that any change would be made by the Koreans themselves rather than from outside.
But Rhee shrewdly released his opponents and secured re-election. Unabashed, he organized mass demonstrations for a march north and no limits to the war.
His slogan was Pukchin Tongil, with Pukchin is advance to the north and Tongil unity, unify the country. And I recall at one point, all orchestrated, when several hundred young girls, well, girls in their teens, 14, 15, all in white uniforms with plaques, came and sat down in the dust outside the fence of the correspondence billet, and somebody blew a whistle, and they all began to cry because the Americans were preventing the unification of their country. This was very good.
There were other tensions with the army, too.
I would say, frankly, that sometimes our relations with our advisors were not that good. We found sometimes American officers attitude arrogant, quite overbearing.